Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to the Conscious Eating Evolution series. I'm Karina, Conscious Eating Catalyst and Soul Relationship Guide, and have created this series to give you a more holistic and overview around the transformative power of food so you are more enabled and empowered to help make healthier and more mindful choices for yourself and this planet. And today we are talking about fasting and how to get healthy fast with Dr. Nathan Gershfeld. And Dr. Gershfeld had changed his career actually from electrical engineer to chiropractor after having a life-changing health experience, and we definitely want to know more about that. He was an intern from 2011 till 14 at the world-renowned TrueNorth Health Center and is the founder of the Fasting Escape, a small inpatient fasting center in Yorba Linda, California. I warmly welcome you to this series, and I'm super, super happy and grateful that you're joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Karina, and I really love the name of the summit. It really kind of embodies what a lot of people need to hear about health and healthy living.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, let's dive right in. Let's know about your story, because it's how did you end up where you are, especially as you started and, becoming or going into a career of engineering?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was an electrical engineer, and it's a fun school, fun topic, but it just wasn't who I was, who I am. And kind of growing up, my grandmother's a chiropractor from my dad's side, and she was always into healthy living. And the funny thing is, she would come to our house when we were growing up, when she would say hi, and then right away make a beeline straight to the refrigerator, and she'd open it up and look at what stuff we were eating as kids, and she would throw stuff away. My parents would get mad, and she would say, "No, I'm helping them." And so it was always in the back of our minds about, just to pay attention and be mindful of the foods that we were eating. Obviously I wasn't listening at all. I just was mindful. I didn't really act on it. So I ended up eating a lot of trash, a lot of foods. My parents did a really good job to keep healthy food in the house, but I would go on my own and, just fall into what's called the pleasure trap, which we'll talk about later, but fell into all these foods that taste really good but aren't that good for me. So as a result of that, right around my senior year of college, I started to get some health problems, and I'd gone to the doctor, and they didn't offer me a lot of advice as far as ability to reverse the health problems. And so because of the information my grandmother would share with us growing up, I suspected that maybe I could reverse the problem without having to deal with surgery and drugs. And so I didn't know if that was going to help or not. I just wanted to try it. And the doctor didn't know. So he really wasn't that supportive of it. So I kind of went on my own. And this was the beginning of when the internet was starting to get very popular. And so it was easier for me to go on the internet than to what I did before, was just to go to libraries and read books and go to classes and stuff. So not that old, but it sure feels like that now that I'm saying it. But so I would read a lot of interesting articles and listen to tapes and listen to CDs and watch videos and go to lectures. And I was trying to piece together what does health mean? So in my case, did health mean simply absence of symptoms? Because in my doctor's case, that's what he wanted to achieve, is the absence of symptoms. But in my case, I wanted to see if I could be healthy. And what I kept running into constantly over and over is that health is the result of healthful living. And that if the body can heal itself of almost everything if we give it the right conditions. The only thing is we have to figure out what those right conditions are. And so in the case of myself, I was trying all kinds of different things. Every single herbal cleanse, every supplement, every potion, every powder, everything that was out there at the time, I was just open to trying it. And I wanted to see if they could convince me on their package or their literature, information or booklet or whatever, that it was somehow helpful to my health, I would just try it. And so 6 months into that, my problems weren't resolved, and I was getting a little impatient because I felt like I was working really hard at getting healthy. I was trying everything, drinking juices all the time. I mean, it was a really regimented schedule, but I didn't feel like my efforts were being rewarded with better health, or at least better objective symptom relief. So it was one of those things where I just accidentally stumbled onto TrueNorth Health Center because, again, my grandmother, who I thank every day for introducing me to this, she was watching me go through this process, and she hadn't done anything different than I had. She was taking all of these supplements and doing a lot of healthy things, and she was in her 70s, 80s, and 70s and 80s, and she was super healthy herself. So she really only had to go on her own information. So she had told me, hey, there's this like crazy fasting clinic somewhere in Northern California that you may want to check out, that they'll be able to help you if you can't figure this out by yourself. So I called TrueNorth Health Center. At the time, it was called, I believe, it was the Center for Conservative Therapy. Mm-hmm. And I talked to Dr. Goldhamer, and he said, yeah, we're going to do a fast. And of course, I thought I knew everything about fasting because I'd read a few books. I was like, well, do you do this fast? And do you do this kind of fast? And he goes, yeah, just come up here and we'll figure it all out. So I went up there. And of course, Dr. Goldhamer gave me the instructions. He said, fruits and vegetables and nothing else before you come and do a fast. And so as I'm going up there, I'm like, fruits, vegetables, nothing else. Fruits, vegetables, nothing else. Fruits. And then I've got these cravings like sitting in, like it's 2 days before I do a fast. And here I am thinking, it's my last supper. Like, I don't know how long I'm going to fast, whether I'm going to survive this or not, but like, I really want to eat something good before I go. But I was able to hold out up until the last minute, where I'm driving up, and I filled up my gas, my tank of gas to the fill, because I didn't want to stop by anywhere, because I knew that if I stopped by, I was like way more likely to eat a bunch of trash. But I didn't realize that the trip up to Northern California takes a tank and a half of the gas. Mm-hmm. So here I am running on fumes. I finally pull into the gas station. I thought, I'm just going to put my credit card in the reader, pull it out, put the gas in, sit in the car, and then I'll be gone. And that way I don't have any temptation inside the convenience store. And of course the credit card reader doesn't work. So I have to go inside, and I was like, I'm just going to go in and out very quickly, just for 2 minutes, pay the guy, leave. And that's it. Of course there's a line. So I have to sit there in the line and look at all the chips and the cookies and all the stuff that I was like really, really into, and I was trying to avoid. And sure enough, the one thing that did me over was I see a bag of potato chips, which was my vice. And it says made with organic sea salt or whatever it was. And of course, it's all baloney. It doesn't matter if it's made with organic sea salt or not. But that was the thing that was like, okay, well, maybe
not that bad.
Well. So, and mind you, this wasn't one of those small potato chip bags. Uh-huh. This was the family size bag. So I ate about half of that on the way up to TrueNorth, and I felt guilty the whole way. Took some, herbal laxatives, where I thought that I'd get rid of it. And then they fed me my last meal there, and I did a fast. Mm-hmm. Horrible, miserable, obviously, because I ate a big bag of potato chips beforehand, but it was a miserable experience during the fast itself. But what was interesting is when I finished the fast, I started feeling a little bit better, but when I was finishing the fast, I started exercising more and eating the food, and I was feeling fantastic. And the amazing part is all the cravings that I had for all this unhealthy food mm-hmm. was gone. Mm-hmm. Like I actually, my taste buds changed so much that healthy food was actually tasting phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, okay, this is possible now. Up until then, I would struggle, and I would eat really healthy, and then I would inevitably crash and eat a bunch of stuff that I wasn't supposed to. Mm-hmm. And after the fast, it was like night and day. It was like a little turning point, that switch that went off. And that switch was the cravings. And so ever since then, I'd been excited about doing fasting. And I remember leaving there thinking, I want to do something like this. And so this was after I'd graduated. So I finished the fast, went back home, started working on my environment, started understanding and reading things like The Pleasure Trap and books and DVDs from Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhamer. And so that kind of transformed it. And the cool thing is the health problems that I had started this journey with, a couple of them went away. They reversed completely, to the point where my doctor was like, I don't know what you did, and this is not supposed to happen, but keep doing what you're doing. And everything just started to improve. So that's my story of how I got to this place. And then I went, I started taking prereqs for the chiropractic classes that I didn't have in engineering school. And during that time, I got in contact with Dr. Goldhamer and reminded him that I was a patient at TrueNorth Health Center. I was wondering if I could come over and do an internship. I remember telling him that I don't have any clinical experience at all. I don't know how to do anything, but I can learn quickly, and I'll wash his dishes, shine his shoes, whatever he needs me to do. Just I want to intern there. So luckily he accepted me, went in, did an internship, and it was so much fun. I remember calling my dad every night while I was at TrueNorth for the very first time and is telling him, oh my God, this condition, I just learned what this is. And by the way, it got reversed. This condition gets reversed. This condition is reversed. High blood pressure, diabetes, people who have been struggling with their overweight for a long time. People have been struggling with their cravings for a long time are getting good results. People with autoimmune conditions are getting results. People with skin conditions. I mean, it was like every day was like an exciting journey. And I remember there was other interns with me, and these were medical doctors. So I was this, just some lay person who was going into chiropractic school. Well, these are people that were graduating from who had graduated from Johns Hopkins University, medical doctors who were in practice, and they would tell me some of the things that I didn't understand, and it was just blowing my mind. But it was cool to watch them, because they would tell me that this is the first time in their careers that they had ever seen people actually get better.
Wow.
And it's just incredible. Like how is it that people can go through school and not see that many people get better? Like, it blew my mind. So I was very lucky that the first clinical experience that I ever had was people actually getting better. So Dr. Goldhamer jokes with me even to this day when we talk to each other on the phone, is that I got really spoiled at TrueNorth. Because I never really had the patience for patients in school, at the school clinic, where patients just would come in and they'd be coming in for the same chronic problem and never really getting better. Whereas at TrueNorth, it was like the expectation is you get better. If you don't, that's an anomaly. So
yeah. So you created a new normal, normal, because you were never exposed to the other side.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's hard to go back.
Wonderful. And so what is the thing why is fasting so powerful? Like, what are the benefits of doing fast? Yeah,
that's so the fast, why is the fast beneficial? Well, let me kind of explain what happens in the body when you're fasting. Now, to set this up, let's take a look at let's take a look at somebody who kind of the average American, maybe in their 50s or 60s. They're overweight. They maybe have 5 to 9 medications. Most of the problems are due to the lifestyle. So metabolic syndrome, things like type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, gallbladder problems, being overweight, those types of things. Now let's suppose that particular person is lucky enough to be introduced to healthy food and healthy living by the Conscious Eating Evolution series, or somebody like Chef AJ, or somebody like T. Colin Campbell, or Dr. John McDougall, Dr. Goldhamer, Dr. Lyle. Some of these people and the big pioneers in the field, Dr. Dean Ornish, who showed that you can actually reverse these problems, the heart disease, with a adequate diet. And let's say we have, they've heard about all this message, and now they go home and they stock up their fridge and they start eating the food, and they start doing it. The problem is that it's such an incredibly difficult journey to make because you've got all the pressure of the outside world. Okay. So the foods that you're supposed to be eating, coming from foods that you're currently eating, they don't taste that good. So if I was going to eat a big bowl of salad compared to what I used to eat, which was 2 hot dogs, a Caesar salad, and tacos or something like that, it just wouldn't taste very good.
I just wanted to throw that in there real quick, because that's what I think is so, that's what's awesome about you, is because you really know the other side and how it feels like having these addictions and eating that other food and being caught up in that cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's devastating because it wears on people's minds, because they may be conscientious enough and disciplined enough. The problem is it's not a fair fight. It's not a fair fight at all. If you were to, if you had to say a job to do, at your work, and it says, okay, you've got to override some of the instant gratification to accomplish this goal, I would consider that a fair fight. If you're intelligent enough to get the job, you're conscientious enough to keep the job, then you're going to be put in scenarios where you have to use your discipline and your willpower to accomplish certain tasks. But that's different than trying to do something completely different than what you were designed to do, which is to eat a different diet. Okay, so it's not a fair fight at all, because it turns out that healthy foods, if you are used to eating high stimulating foods, healthy foods aren't going to taste that good. Okay, and that's going to be a big problem, because just imagine if you were riding a bicycle and every time you fall off the bicycle that you're trying to learn, it hurts. Right? So it hurts to fall off the bicycle. And so your nervous system is going to adjust how you're riding the bicycle to make sure you don't fall off. And this is what we see in kids, is after just a couple of rides, they can balance on the bicycle and they don't fall off very often. But with food and changing your diet and lifestyle, imagine if every time you fell off the bicycle, you had an orgasm. Like how difficult would it be to learn how to ride a bicycle? It would feel so good every time you fell off. Like, why would you want to start to learn? So the thing with food is, every time you fall off the wagon with food, it actually tastes better than when you're actually eating the healthy food. And so this is a big problem, because it gets people very, very discouraged and frustrated surrounding this issue. And I kind of went off a tangent, so I forgot.
That's actually part of the pleasure trap, right? Yeah. Which you can continue to talk about, and then we go right back into the original question. Right,
exactly. So yeah, thank you. So the pleasure trap, so this goes into the pleasure trap, which is that we're designed by nature to be able to make normal decisions surrounding food. And the decisions that we're making is all about figuring out whether the food is valuable for our survival or not. Okay, and these circuits that were designed by nature were designed over thousands of generations. Okay, and so these circuits are kind of built into our head, and they're designed to detect and evaluate food based on how dense they are with regards to calories. And so if you eat salad, for example, which is about 100 calories per pound, you'd have to eat like 20 pounds of salad every day to get enough calories. Okay, and whereas if you were to eat something like potatoes, that's 500 or 600 calories per pound. So you only have to eat about 4 pounds of potatoes a day. 20 pounds versus 4 pounds. Which is more valuable? Which is going to expose you to more predators as you're foraging for the food? Which is going to cause you to expend more energy when you're going to be searching for the food? Of course, we know that it's going to be the salad. So that's why salad isn't as exciting for us. That's why raw vegetables aren't as exciting as, say, starchy vegetables. And then if we look at processed foods, refined foods like sugar, bread, chocolate, oil, oily foods, fried foods, those are all 5 times more concentrated than starches are, more than 5 times more concentrated. So it makes sense why they are so rewarding, why they feel so good when we eat them. It's just not conducive to our health. So we've got to spin the wheels in a completely different direction and understand that we're fighting our instincts, our entire instincts. It's like putting your hand on something that's a little too hot and forcing yourself to hold it there. Like, you'd have to be fighting your instincts. Okay, so this is a huge challenge. Okay, and like I said, it's not a fair fight. So it's understandable why people are very frustrated when they try to eat healthy. The problem is they also don't understand is that if you were to say, grit your teeth and just eat the healthy food and just force yourself to eat it, it can take 30 to 90 days for your taste buds to get sensitive enough so that the food actually tastes good. Okay. 30 to 90 days is a long time for someone who doesn't know that it takes 30 to 90 days. You know what I mean? Like 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, it's like, oh my God, is this food going to taste awful for my rest of my life? I'd rather just die earlier. Okay. People don't know it takes 1 to 3 months. Now we circle to fasting. With fasting, these processes take so quick for your taste buds to readapt, your nervous systems to rebalance, your body to get a good rest, and you to catch up on some sleep, that you can short circuit this process in about a week or two. Okay, so you do a week or two of fasting in a supervised setting, and so it's controlled and it's safe. Now all of a sudden you end the fast and the healthy food tastes phenomenal. Like a couple people here who are staying at the Fasting Escape, they just broke their fast after a short fast, maybe 5 or 6 days. And the lady was telling, one of the patients was telling me how good Swiss chard tastes, like how it tastes salty. and how sweet the carrots taste.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's something you won't hear from a normal standard American diet eater.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that's why a fast is important. A fast can do many things. The one thing I think is incredibly important is resensitizing your taste buds so that healthy food actually tastes good.
So it's actually like a reset to its original state.
Yeah.
Original.
Yep. Exactly. And the other thing is we get caught into these cycles of eating unhealthy foods, and we might know intellectually that we want to be going back to healthier foods. The problem is that it can be so reinforcing and so unnatural that we get caught in a cycle. And so even if, some of the people listening at home, you can break a cycle in 3 or 4 days. And so you can do that at home where if you can just you close all the windows and doors, get just healthy food for a weekend and just eat, say, raw fruits and veggies or just steamed veggies or something just for the weekend. That's sometimes enough to break a pretty significant cycle. Okay. And maybe if you're not on medications, you can do a 24-hour fast of just water where you rest. But that might be enough to break a cycle. In some cases, it's just not possible to break that cycle that quickly in an environment where you know where all the food is and you can go and drive and get food from the car. So that's when people go to a center like Fasting Escape or Frank Sabatino's in Florida or TrueNorth Health Center. That's why we have what we have, is that we provide a restful environment and a comfortable environment where people can suffer a little less miserably.
Safe environment.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, like, what conditions, for example, are you especially have you been exposed to that we're really being able to get people off from or away from through the fasting, that either at the TrueNorth or at your Escape Center?
Yeah, the most common conditions the conditions that respond most favorably to fasting are the conditions that were due to dietary excess.
Okay.
So regardless of what you have, if it has gotten worse because you've been eating unhealthy foods and foods off the program, then doing a fast can help, particularly high blood pressure. Okay, high blood pressure is the number one indicator, number one risk factor for all-cause mortality. And so even somebody who has blood pressure of say 140 over 80, 86, for example, they have 5 times greater risk of dying from stroke than someone who has a blood pressure that's in the normal range. So they may not be high enough to justify medications, but it's still high enough where they want to do something before it's too late. So something like high blood pressure responds incredibly favorably to fasting, especially when we screen correctly and make sure that you're healthy enough to fast. So for example, about 15, 20 years ago, Dr. Alan Goldhamer from the TrueNorth Health Center, they published an article that actually they had the data about people with blood pressure. And it turns out that while medications for high blood pressure will lower your blood pressure by about 12 points on the top number and about 9 points on the bottom number, fasting can lower blood pressure 37 points on the top number and 13 points on the bottom number. It's incredible. It's 2 to 3 times higher, a better effect size than medications. And that's just in an average of 11 days of fasting. So in this particular study, it was 5 to 28 days of water fasting, the average of 11 days. But can you imagine reversing a condition that has been in people's bodies for 20, 30 years, all in just 2 or 3 weeks? Sometimes longer. But that's really incredible. I just had a lady here. This was maybe earlier last year, and she had high blood pressure and she had medications. And so the thing to keep in mind is you cannot fast right away on medications because they will affect you negatively. And so the strategy is we get them on healthy food for a couple of days, and typically the blood pressure comes down enough that your doctor can release you from the medications, and then you can start the water fast. So in her case, I had talked to her and said, she only had 10 days. I said, well, we need like 2 or 3 weeks. She had 30, 40 years of high blood pressure, all kinds of other problems. And I said, well, can we do 2 or 3 weeks? She said, no, I only have 10 days. I said, okay, well, we'll do the best we can. And then you just eat the food afterwards and see what we can do. So she comes in on 2 or 3 different blood pressure meds. And in 3 days of just eating the food, her blood pressure drops enough that she can discontinue the medications with her doctor's permission. Incredible. So she starts a water fast. And she only had enough time to do a 5-day water fast so that she could refeed properly afterwards. And in 5 days, her blood pressure completely normalizes.
Wow.
Now, this is a lady who was old enough where the doctors were thinking that since the blood pressure medications weren't working at all, that she might have a tumor in her brain, a tumor in her kidney, all these things. And in just a week, her blood pressure gets back to normal. And she eats the food, leaves here off her medications and completely free of her high blood pressure. And then she calls me 3 months later telling me how good she's been doing, but that her blood pressure crept up a little bit. So we were trying to figure out, okay, well, what happened? Turns out she had gone to a restaurant with some of her friends. And although she had asked them for no salt in the food, they put some salt in there. Now we see that your body is responsive in both directions. Okay, so this is kind of the results for
off, right?
Exactly. Yeah, your body is so responsive to the right things and the wrong things that's doing a fast can really reverse some of these problems. And I have no doubt that if she stuck onto the diet, then the body would get much less sensitive to salt. And so if in case, 20 years from now or 5 years from now, if she's still on the diet and someone adds in a little bit of salt accidentally, it won't raise her blood pressure as much as it did the first time. But all this to say is high blood pressure is the number one responding thing that I see in fasting. The other thing that responds really well to water fasting is people who have type 2 diabetes. Okay. Type 2 diabetes is defined as the incorrect regulation of blood sugar. And it's different from type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is where you have that incorrect regulation of blood sugar because your pancreas doesn't have the cells that create insulin. And so you have to inject insulin, otherwise your blood sugar will rise. With type 2 diabetes, the reason why the blood sugar rises is because it's been so high for so long that your cells get sensitive. They get resistant to the insulin. They get desensitized and they get resistant to insulin. And as a result, the blood sugar starts to rise. It's really cool to watch people who are fasting. Their blood sugar drops. And then when they refeed, their blood sugar stays below the threshold for diabetes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, fasting is not a cure. It's that it's a most effective management strategy for some of these conditions. And so, you can't go back to eating unhealthy foods and expect to be better. I recommend, I caution people against using fasting as a medication, because it's not a medication, right? Medications are, you take this pill and you're cured. You can do whatever you want afterwards. That's not how fasting works. Fasting is a management strategy where we're actually resetting the body and trying to go back to where we were before we got the disease.
I love that. And so you already pointed out a couple, but what are conditions that, where you say people should not at all go on a fast or do fasting?
The main thing is if people have kidney disease and it's sufficiently high to raise what's called creatinine level in the bloodstream, then we want to be very cautious to fast somebody. The other thing, because your kidneys are working hard while fasting, and we want them to have enough capacity to continue working hard while fasting. The other conditions is if people have any types of medications other than thyroid medications or hormones. If people have other medications, then it's contraindicated to fasting. We just don't know how the body will respond to certain medications, and we don't want to risk that. And so if people come in here and they're on medications, then what we do is, I talk to everybody before we do a fast, before they come here, just to make sure that they're actually going to get a good result. I don't want people to come here and spend a bunch of money to fly here or drive here and make plans if they come here and they can't get the result they want. So I talk to every single person before they come here to make sure that they're actually going to get the result that they want. And if they are on medications, then we make sure that their doctor is on board to help them phase them off, either before they arrive or they come here and eat the food, and then their doctor helps phase them off the medications. I'm taking their vitals every day. And so somebody with high blood pressure medications, we're checking their blood pressure once, twice a day. And so once your blood pressure comes back to normal, your doctor can't keep you on the medications ethically. So they have to take you off the medications. And at which point now they can fast. Same thing goes for the oral hypoglycemics like metformin and glipizide. We're checking, the person's checking their blood sugar. I'm checking their vitals and everything else. And so once it gets close enough to normal, then they discontinue the medication and they can start fasting. And then they're able to leave here without them at all.
Wow. And I think like, so using fasting as a reset,
Mm-hmm.
you lay the foundation for then start off with healthier habits.
Mm-hmm.
How do you support people in, staying committed to that and especially knowing what to do afterwards?
That's a great question, because what I often had seen before I started sharing this is that people would be ripping their hair out figuratively and upset at themselves and frustrated that they were trying everything they could do, but they just couldn't stay on the program. And
Mhm.
so my attitude now, after I've learned more about this subject, especially through Dr. Lyle's information, is to work more on your environment than you need to work on yourself. And
Mhm.
there's nothing wrong with you if you've gotten overweight in today's world. In fact, I will say that if you're overweight today, you're doing exactly what you've been designed to do by nature, which is to store up your insurance policy in case winter comes too early and spring comes too late. Okay, fat is nature's insurance policy.
Mhm.
Okay, so today, if you have extra reserves and if you've overeaten to the point of having a disease, there's no shame in this. This is not a character issue. Okay, this is an environment issue. Okay,
Mhm.
if we put rats into a cage and we feed them normal food, they won't get overweight. But if we feed them the foods that we eat, they're going to get double their weight. They're going to gain 50% of their weight in just 60 days. Okay. That's not a character flaw for the rats. Okay. And we're not rats, but we're close. Okay. That's not a character flaw. Okay.
Depends on our behavior,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But that's not a character flaw for any animal, any human eating unhealthy. That's not a character flaw. What it is this is our brain is designed by nature to be trying to consume as many high calorie foods as possible. And so the answer to this problem is, number one, forgive yourself. The second answer is work on your environment.
Mhm.
Okay. So work on your environment as best as you can. And if you slip up, think back and say, how did my environment, create this mess? And if it turns out that you're a people person and you like schmoozing, you like going to parties, you like going to you hanging out with people, that's going to be a vulnerability. That means that it's not going to be very easy to be very compliant if you're around all that food. Okay. So now we get into different personalities. Like, let's suppose you were very introverted and you just didn't want to be around people. You'd be vastly more likely to succeed on this plan. Yeah,
Mhm.
because no one would invite you anywhere and you would have a lot less temptation. Okay. Let's suppose you're not a pleasant person, meaning you're not afraid to just say no and offend people. Okay. If you're not a pleasant person, or you're close to not, you're not that afraid to say no, you're also going to do better on this program. Okay. Because if people are nice to you and they want to give you some of their food, even though it's unhealthy, you don't care. You say, no, I don't want any. No, thanks. You don't care about offending them. But if you're a nice, pleasant person that just doesn't want to say no all the time and someone offers you something, like, are you really going to sit there and say, okay, but does it have salt in it? Does it have sugar in it? Does it have flour? You know what I mean? Like, no, you're going to say, okay, I'll take a little bit. Now you're going to be tempted. Okay.
Mhm.
So you are who you are. Okay. You can't really change yourself. But what you can change is your environment. And
Mhm.
so a couple of tips that I've come up over the years is, number one, don't keep junk food in the house. Okay. If you live alone, that's very easy. If you live with other people who maybe don't support or aren't on the same plan as you, perhaps you keep their food or your food in a completely different place. Okay. So that you have a safe place for your own food that you can come and there's no temptations. Okay.
Mhm.
Same thing goes for your private spaces, your room, your office, your car, your purse, your gym bag, whatever is your personal space. Make sure that there's no tempting foods or tempting things in there. Okay, so that you don't have to make any decisions to the negative whenever you are in your private spaces. Okay, that's kind of the thing to do. The other thing that you can do is prepare some food ahead of time. Make sure, see if you have the funds, hire it out. Get someone to shop for you and put it in the fridge and make a few dishes. If you do it yourself, that's also a possibility. It just takes a little bit of time, but you do it once a week or something, go shopping once a week or twice a week, and then make your food a couple times a week. If you do those types of things, then you're setting up your environment that makes this much, much easier to do. Okay. And the last two things is get a good night's sleep and get some exercise. Because it turns out that if you're not exercising and you're sleep deprived, you're much more likely to not have the energy to exercise the willpower, and you're going to go through something called decision fatigue. And so you're much more likely to run into some problems if you're sleep deprived and if you don't have a lot of willpower built up through the exercise.
Mm-hmm. And that will especially then as well play out in the food section, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what things from your perspective as well need to be kind of worked on or looked at? I think you said already, like exercise and sleep,
Mm-hmm.
besides food, to become more healthy.
Yeah. So in this approach here in Fasting Escape, we promote 8 major things. So clean air is obvious. If you're smoking or if you're in such a polluted city and it's affecting you, then the number one strategy is to get out. Okay, get the environment under control so that you're not continuing to damage your lungs and the rest of your body through the polluted air. But assuming we have the pollution and the air right, then we talk about diet, sleep, exercise, sunshine, laughter, appropriate response to stress, and a loving social circle. Okay, if we can do those things, so diet just happens to be the most significant, the most important. It didn't have to be that way. It just happened to be that way, that we get a lot of our food and a lot of our fuel, our fuel and our food, our fuel from our food. And the food has been tampered with to the point where now we're getting plenty of calories, but not as much nutrition. And so we want to make sure that we're eating lots of whole fruit, fresh fruits and vegetables. So fruits, vegetables, and the starches, so potatoes, rice, beans, and minimizing the high calorie dense stuff, even eliminating if you're trying to reverse disease, but high, really significantly limiting things like meat, fish, fowl, eggs, dairy products, oil, salt, sugar, flour, alcohol, and coffee. So that's what you want to be doing as far as diet goes. If we don't do this, then we start to run into problems of obesity, diabetes, cancer, stroke, high blood pressure, heart disease, things like that. So sleep. Many people are sleep deprived today. Okay, this is because of an unnatural invention called the light bulb. Okay, where no matter how conscious we are, we still want to be awake past 9 p.m. if there's something really interesting going on. So it's just the nature of the beast. That's how it is. But if we are staying up so late that we are depriving ourselves of sleep, then we're also increasing our risk for those diseases that I talked about as well. Your brain essentially cleans itself through a sleep cycle. And so if you don't sleep enough, you wake up with a dirty brain. Okay, that's what feeling tired is you're waking up with a dirty brain. And so what happens when we wake up tired and we have to go to work, we have to do something important? What do most people do? They drink coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, they drink the coffee. What does coffee do? Coffee blocks the signal from your brain that you're tired. So your entire body and your brain is tired, but you're not feeling it. So you now are expending more energy when you're tired. The other thing is coffee has a half-life. I believe it's about 6 to 12 hours. And so if you drink a cup of coffee in the morning, by the time you're going to bed, you still have a small amount of caffeine still in your bloodstream. That disrupts your sleep again. And then the next day you wake up tired, and then you need more coffee, and then you wake up there. Yeah, exactly. So we want to be getting good quality sleep, somewhere in the realm of 9 to 10 hours a night, as best we can. Now, one thing that's I don't talk about so much just because it's tough to do, but if you feel like you're in a cycle of bad sleep, where you're trying to get off coffee, getting a weekend off, or even doing it like a fast or something here or at home, a short couple of days breaking the cycle of caffeine, that can be enough to detox you from caffeine, and then you just catch up on sleep as you keep going. But sometimes the circadian rhythms can be so disrupted that you just can't get to sleep on time, in which case something I read maybe a decade ago seemed to suggest that if you go out in nature and do a camping trip without any electronics for, I think the number was 7 or 8 days, that can help reset the circadian rhythms. So whether it's a fast here or doing a camping trip, do something where you're getting back to nature and recalibrating your body's ability to sleep at night. So that's about sleep. Now, diet, sleep, and exercise. So exercise, it turns out we don't have to make a big production out of doing, an hour or two of exercise a day. we could, like hunter-gatherer data shows that they exercise, they run about 16 miles a day. Okay. So it's going to be unlikely that we're going to over exercise. But most people are under exercised. So we can do 10, 15 minutes a day of some sort of exercise. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be just dancing like 3 or 4 songs in the living room, at full power. Okay. Or it could be something more significant like yoga or some sort of exercise, maybe running or other things. Like I like to play hockey. So that's a lot of fun, and you get pretty sweaty with that, but something at least every day. Laughter, obviously that's a lot of fun to laugh. Creating a loving social circle and emotional support, that kind of goes together with where we've come from nature. So back in the age of our ancestors, we had a village and we gathered at the campfire every night and discussed, got updated for gossip and whatnot. And there was more emotional support than we have now. So we have to forge the connections that we want and maintain them so that we have that emotional support, so that that's another piece of the puzzle. It's no good to eat as healthy as possible, sleep as good as you want, and exercise as much as you want if you have nobody around to share it with. If you're an average extroversion, or if you like having a village, we want to be sure that we focus on that, or at least partially.
And I think that's that's something that a lot of people struggle with when they begin to go on a healing journey for themselves and commit to a healthier lifestyle, because then it changes the relationship with a lot of people around them.
Right.
What do you recommend them to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're essentially saying that if I were to go vegan or plant-based or whatever whatever I decide to do, you're designed by nature, actually. You're designed by nature that if you discover something that can significantly positively impact the village, you're supposed to go to the village and tell them all. Okay. And if you tell them, you're actually supposed to get a whole lot of credit for saving their lives. Okay. And so this is what people do when they hear about, the incredible benefits of eating a healthy diet and living a healthy lifestyle. Is they're convinced, and in fact, they may have done it themselves, and they get phenomenal results. So now they go to their village and they say, "Hey, listen, this is what I learned, and this is what can help you." And they're dismayed when people react in the complete opposite manner, which is, "Oh, where do you get your protein?" Or "Where do you think you're going to do this?" Or "Yo, you can't do that. Oh, that's too extreme for me. We can't really do that." So it's incredibly frustrating. And we have to realize that this is again, another part of human nature, which is what's actually happening is you're motivated to go share this information, but people don't want to hear it. Look at all the inventions that we've made that people like to do. They all conserve energy. Okay. So if I invented the car, I just got a lot of status, a lot of credit because I just saved people a lot of time and energy. Okay. If we look at fast food, what does that do? Saves a lot of time and energy. Okay? You can get a lot of calories for not very much effort. Well, when you start telling people, "Hey, guess what? I found the solution to health." And let's suppose you say, "Well, I found the solution to health, and it's this just little pill. You just have to take it." You think you're going to get a lot of credit for that? I think so. Right? Let's look at the supplement sales and pharmaceutical sales. But now we say, "Oh, I found the solution to health, and by the way, you have to work 10 hours extra per week. You have to be the fringe outside your friend group. You can't eat anywhere we go. And by the way, you're going to be at odds with your doctor because they probably haven't heard it, and they're going to be antagonize you constantly, not knowing. And by the way, the food's not going to taste very good for 90 days. Okay.
Inviting, right?
Oh, and by the way, I know more than you do about health and wealth. You know what I mean? Can you no wonder people react negatively when you say this. So what we have to realize is that because this is such an odd scenario, that we're actually going to do something called beating the genes, what Dr. Lyle has called beat your genes. Okay. What we should call on our podcast. And what we want to do with beat our genes is we want to fight the temptation to disseminate this information as fast as possible to people. And instead, we want to focus on our own journey and get lost in the process of all the curious things that happen when we're on our own journey. And so a couple of phrases that Dr. Lyle has come up with around this is when people say, "Oh, you're on this new diet? Tell me about it." Is you want to actually downplay your efforts. Okay. There's another curious thing that happens in people's minds when you start telling them that you found the answer to something that requires a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that happens is they get a little nervous that you're now displaying how conscientious you are and how fastidious you are. And there's a little bit of that competitive edge that just lights up a little bit and says, uh-oh, Karina's now displaying a lot more conscientiousness surrounding her health and lifestyle than I'm comfortable with. Let's be careful there. We got to tread carefully because she may outcompete us, and therefore, we don't want that. Okay.
The noble psychology of the human species.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. This is why when you say, "Oh, I found the healthiest diet possible and it can reverse all your problems," and people say, "Oh, well, where do you get your protein?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? What they're saying is, "Oh, you think you're so conscientious and you think you know so much. I know something too.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you need to get protein from somewhere." Right? So what we want to do is we want to short circuit. We don't want to be involved in that competitive process at all because we're trying to make friends. We're not trying to compete with them surrounding diet and lifestyle. Okay. So what we do is we actually downplay this. And when people say, "Oh, you're on this diet," you say, "Oh, I'm on this diet. It seems to be working for me," i.e., I'm not prescribing it for everybody. So you can relax. Okay. You also can say, "Oh, my doctors, they're monitoring me. They said it seems to be working as well." i.e., I'm not a nutcase. Like my doctor is actually monitoring me, and you're appealing to authority, saying that, hey, they're watching me, and they're making sure that I'm okay. All of a sudden now, when you say this, people relax, and they aren't so concerned with trying to, change your diet or pepper you with a bunch of questions. And so if you practice these phrases and kind of understand the concept, now they can leave you alone. You can eat your kale salad without any problems. And you know what? They might even ask you for a bite.
Awesome. I think so much valuable information you give out here. I think it will help a lot of people. I would love to ask more questions because it's so fun to listen and to talk to you. So I'm gonna throw in one more before I invite you to share more about your gift and everything. So there's so many detoxes, cleanses, things out there that are promoted, and I think you went through a lot of them in the beginning of your healing journey. What would be your advice for people to have to create better discernment in what is really trustworthy or not in that way? Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, this is partially why the scientific method is so useful. It's not perfect, but it allows us to look at objective data and to clarify things that are attributed in error. Okay, so I tell people, I've written an article where before where it says, finding health information on the internet is difficult because it's like trying to find an engagement ring at a swap meet. Okay. In theory, you might be able to find one for cheap. Okay. But you're more likely to find it if you go to the experts. Okay. People who have clinical experience. Okay. So if you take your friend who's a jeweler to the swap meet, you might be disappointed with the rings you find. Okay. Whereas if you go to your normal doctor, they may not have any knowledge about any current information about whole food plant-based diets and how you treat certain conditions with those, but they are still a professional. So they are bound by ethical and professional standards, and they can be attacked for malpractice. So they are highly motivated and have the chops to discern information. And other experts, people with clinical experience. But so yeah, I would look at even things like the National Health Association. They have a great database of all kinds of health practitioners in the country and in the world that are into this lifestyle, who are professionals, and they have some of them are even certified through the International Association of Hygienic Physicians. But it's a tough road out there. It's one of those, there's a lot more information now than there was when I first started this 10, 15 years ago. And it's kind of about the same. Is we're trying to do something different, which is less is more. Okay, it's counterintuitive that doing nothing is better than doing anything when it comes to high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and healthy living. But you talk to people who have clinical experience, and they will be able to guide you along the way.
So we actually didn't talk about the major question, like how to eat to improve your health.
Yes.
We didn't do that.
Right. We want to be eating. Oh, you mean as far as like specifically what to eat?
Yes.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So what we want to be eating is large amounts of fruits, vegetables, potatoes, rice, beans, steamed vegetables, and a occasional amount of nuts and avocados and such. And that's where we want the majority of our calories to be coming from, is whole natural plant foods. Okay. If we do that, we don't have to be 100%. There's a few people out there that can do 100% and it doesn't bother them. It's kind of easy for them, or at least it's easier for them. But what we want to shoot for is about 80% or so, and we want to be eating as clean as possible, whole plant foods. That'll give us the most protection against these chronic diseases. So a typical breakfast here at the Fasting Escape is when people are on normal meals, when they've finished fasting and we've reintroduced the food to normal quantities. A normal meal for breakfast may be either salad and fruits or oatmeal and fruits, or a combination of all three. For lunch, we have some sort of steamed vegetable dish, some sort of salad, and then some sort of starchy main dish. So it could be like a baked potato. It could be some sweet potatoes. It could be some corn on the cob. It could be like a curry kind of dish. And then the same thing for dinner. And then any snacks in between would be like fruits or vegetable sticks or anything like that. So that would be like a typical healthy meals that you'd want to be eating. Now, that's practically speaking, it's going to be hard to do because no one's here at the center all day long. But for work, you know what I mean? You pack some meals in, but you want to be eating a large quantity of whole plant foods. And that's where I would go with the food.
Okay, awesome. So if people want to work or connect more deeply with you, where do they find you?
So you can find me on fastingescape.com. So that's the website for the retreat center. And this is a small, it's a large house with 4 beds available for people to come in and break the cycle and get some momentum back in their health. And so right now I have people some people are staying for a few weeks. Some people are staying for just a 1 or 2 week stay, but it just depends on your goals. And so this is where we get the process started. And we break that cycle and get some momentum for you. And so if you feel like this may be a benefit for you and you're not sure yet, or if you do know, then you can go on the website under the registration page and just schedule a phone consult with me. Once you schedule a phone consult with me, then we'll talk on the phone and just discuss whether or not a fast may make sense. If not, then we can talk about what you can do at home to break the cycle and get back on track.
Awesome. And that's as well the free gift that you offer the audience.
Yep, that's the phone consult.
Awesome.
Yep, absolutely. If you have any questions about fasting, you're thinking you might benefit from a fast, or you want to know if a fast might benefit, if it's worth it to schedule some time out, then that's what we'll talk about.
Okay, awesome. So my last question, every expert is asked this on the summit, is if you do have a personal message of hope that you want to share with the audience, then this would be a great opportunity.
Absolutely. I think that forgive yourself. This is a tough journey, and like I said earlier, it's not a fair fight by any measurement. Not only do you have the pressure of your peers who are watching you do this and unknowingly pulling you off course, but you have all the smart food scientists trying to make all the food taste delicious and smell delicious and look delicious so that you'd be pulled off course. And so forgive yourself if you get off track a little bit. It's not an easy journey. It does take hard work. And so you can't just coast by, but again, work on your environment more than you work on yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was really fun and a pleasure to talk to you. So much great shared knowledge and wisdom, I think. And thank you all for watching and joining us today. And please stay tuned for more incredible content on how to eat to improve your health, empower your spirit, and thrive for the planet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye. Thank you so much.